Good evening. I'd like to welcome our large audience here to the regular meeting of the City of Highland Park Plan and Design Commission for Tuesday, August 20th. Director Fontaine, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Nannis?
Here.
Commissioner Henry?
Here.
Commissioner Arnold?
Here.
Commissioner Mantis?
Present.
And Vice Chair, now Acting Chair Kirsch.
Present.
We have a quorum. I do recognize Council Member Liaison Nat Lidor and Corporation Counsel Martinez. Thank you. And Acting Chair,
Yes.
just wanted to Design Committee.
Absolutely. Commissioner Josh Nannis joining us from the Business Development Advisory Group, where he served admirably, according to anonymous sources within a certain household.
That was the case when we were talking.
Wait, the abnormal part?
And also because I think I walk by his house at least 23 times a week or something up and down hillside. Okay. We have 3 items on the agenda this evening. The consideration of minutes and 2 public hearings regarding zoning text amendments. So if I could have a motion on the approval of the minutes from July 16th.
So moved.
Second, anyone?
I can second it.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Mantis, second by Commissioner Arnold. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes from any of the commissioners? If not, I have just one, and that was the on line 40. The adjournment vote would have been a voice vote, not a roll call vote. Okay, with that correction, all those in favor of approving the minutes of July 16th? This is a voice vote too.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Abstain. I was not at the meeting.
Okay, we passes with 1 abstention on a voice vote. All right, next item up for consideration is public hearing number 2024 ZTA 005 for a zoning text amendment to modify, strike, or create definitions, land use permissions, and related regulations for freight and parcel terminals, truck terminals, warehouses, and similar uses. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Highland Park Plan and Design Commission. My name is Steve Kirch. I'm the Vice Chair and tonight the Acting Chair of the Commission. A quorum of the Plan and Design Commission being present, the members of the commission will now introduce themselves for the record, starting from my right. No, starting from all the way on my right. Just say
Josh Nannis.
Denise Arnold.
Danny Mantis.
Ken Henry.
the Plan and Design Commission is charged with hearing applications for rezonings, plan developments, and subdivisions under the zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations of the City of Highland Park. In all matters, we recommend to the City Council, based upon the testimony presented to us in the hearing, we are required to decide cases within 45 days after receipt of the transcript. All testimony is under oath. Both applicants and others who wish to speak on a particular case should present specific evidence as to why a proposal meets or fails to meet the standards for the relief requested. For clarity of our record, only one person at a time will speak, and all questions will be directed through the chair. We ask that you make every effort to not be repetitive in your testimony. Finally, we will make every effort to adhere to the schedule prepared for tonight's hearing. If additional time is needed on a matter, it will be continued until the next available agenda. With that, I open the floor for the staff of the Plan and Design Commission to read into the record proof of publication and ownership.
Proof of publication and ownership are available for viewing at the Offices of Community Development, 1150 Half Day Road in Highland Park. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And with that Senior Planner Burhop, do you have a presentation for us?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Acting Chair. A very brief presentation. Okay, thank you. My name is Carl Burhop. I'm a senior planner with the City of Highland Park in the Planning Division, Community Development Department. So this is a zoning text amendment. So a change to the zoning code related to truck terminals, freight and parcel terminals, and warehouses. And those are land uses found in section 150.490 of the city code. So this is a very short presentation, 3 slides, I believe. Staff recommend the following amendments to the zoning code to make truck terminals and freight and parcel terminals not allowed. And then to revise the definition for general warehouses and storage facilities enclosed to ensure that they cannot be a truck terminal or freight and parcel terminal. At this public hearing, staff requests consideration and feedback from the commission, and if appropriate, direction to draft findings of fact and an ordinance capturing the proposed changes, which would come back to a future meeting. So the proposed changes, in summary, changes to section 150.490 of the table of allowed uses within the city zoning code, revised section 150.490, table K, that's transportation related uses, to make not allowed the following 2 land uses: truck terminals and freight and parcel terminals. Truck terminals are currently allowed in the B3 and I zoning districts. B3 is the highway commercial, I is the light industrial zoning district as conditional uses. And freight and parcel terminals are currently allowed in those 2 districts as a permitted use. And so the idea would be to no longer allow them. And then to revise in section 150.490, table M, the storage and processing and wholesaling uses. Currently there's a land use in there called general warehouses and storage facilities, enclosed, which is a permitted use in the I and B3 zoning district. And to just essentially replace that within something that will be further defined, warehouse and distribution facilities enclosed. And then that definition was provided in the report on the 2nd page of the report. Essentially, it is to be further defined in such a manner that cannot become a truck terminal or a freight or parcel terminal or a distribution center or terminal of any sort. Comments were submitted for this public hearing to me today. That's why they were not in the packet. Of course, I'll put them in the packet for any future meetings, and I will distribute those so that way they are submitted in the record now. Comments from Will Hendrick and Mike Paterno.
That's fine.
Pause for a moment to allow the commission to review those comments. They were submitted today. They're put into the public record and will be in future packets for, of course, public review. Actually, that's my presentation, so I can take questions if any.
Questions, we'll start with our new addition, Commissioner Nanis.
Thank you, Planner Burhop. Question for you. Looking at the definition for the motor freight terminal, it speaks to, freight being brought by motor truck and then sent out by a motor truck. Is there any reason why autonomous drones or any sort of other method of transportation was not considered to be included to the definition?
We can consider that. We'll take that feedback and consider that.
Cool. Because I see what's going on in Texas and with, Amazon using drones, and I figure if people are this upset about trucks, they'll be even more upset about drones.
And just for the commission, just to state, tonight, we're seeking your feedback on this, and then we'll be back with, as you direct, changes to this and findings of fact and such as you direct.
Anything else?
Nope.
Commissioner Arnold?
Can you go to the second slide in your presentation? So the goal of this is to deter these truck terminals, but can you explain a little bit between your revision and where you're striking, where we're making the district not allowed, and then where we're then talking about storage, processing, and wholesaling uses, the difference between the two? I don't really see much difference between the two in the definitions, and that's confusing me.
Yeah, sure. May I respond, Chair?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I mean, I think in essence, the terminal, the terminals and truck terminals and freight and parcel terminals get more to more short-term overturn of goods and inventory via trucks, is where the warehouse and distribution facilities are more about kind of longer-term storage of inventory and goods, where you don't have quite the same turnover and volume of trucks. Now, that's just kind of a off-the-cuff response. Obviously, I defer to the proposed definitions that will be codified, but that would be the simplest explanation I could give.
And then it further qualifies what warehouse and distribution facilities do not include, so that there isn't a definitional loophole, for lack of better terms, right? So what we're trying to do is take care of, there's several uses that seem very similar, and we're trying to make sure that the code, what we're saying is not allowing those, but then also changing this definition in such a way is that it couldn't be used to allow the things that we're talking about, the truck terminal and the other thing, in a backdoor kind of way.
I'm not sure that's clear yet in the language, though.
Okay.
I don't see the difference.
Okay. If you have some suggestions,
Well, I mean, the goal is not to have, an Amazon facility where they're going to store goods that come in and out during the day and fill up on trucks and go out to the neighborhood. Is that the idea?
with short periods of time, yes.
But we don't mind it if somebody stores.
Right.
Is this self-storage, or it could be a corporate storage, or?
No, I mean, we're not seeking to say that all warehouses are not allowed. What we're saying is we don't want truck terminals and those other types of uses that Charles was talking about, and we don't want to have someone use this definition to get those. That's what we're saying.
So there's a time period in a turnaround of the goods being stored.
Generally, those types of facilities have quicker turnaround, correct? So warehouses, aren't quite the same as a freight terminal. Freight terminals, like, think of a bus terminal. It's they're constantly coming in. Buses are constantly coming in from many places to go to many places, as opposed to a bus stop, which is not necessarily quite as intense, but it's necessary nonetheless.
Okay, but let's say the day that you're not in the office and you're on sick and one of your staff reviews a plan. I mean, the language doesn't say any of that yet. The language still isn't clear about the duration of storage or the turnaround time period or the type of activity that you are permitting versus what you're not permitting. I just want to push you to get a clearer definition so that anybody could pick up the code and read it and know exactly what's allowed and what's not allowed.
Hard regulatorily to do.
Yeah, I know.
everything. You can't regulate every specific thing. What it says in the definition is it specifically calls out those other things that you're concerned about to say that that's not what this is. So while I understand what you're saying, that's what the intent is here, is that through that definition, we actually say what they're not able to do as well, to make sure that that's clear.
And
without overly defining and or regulating that particular warehouse.
You can speak. You can definitely speak.
Just for the record, this is a zoning text
No, I
amendment
just-
regarding uses allowed,
You're not
not
getting the
storage
answer to this
containers
one.
at this time, just so you know. Okay,
Sorry.
yep, he's here for the next item on the agenda, that's all.
Okay, so we'll come, Commissioner Mantis?
I guess, quick question on rationale for, we're striking two things that were previously conditional and permitted, respectively. And now this new definition that we're using to clarify, we're just calling a permitted use. What's the rationale for making it permitted versus a conditional use in the
For
relevant table?
warehouses?
Yeah.
Because they already are permitted uses. This is just, the essential, in essence, is just being further defined to try to provide more clarity that it cannot be those other uses, the motor freight terminal, the logistics center, et cetera, truck terminal, et cetera.
Got it.
Commissioner Henry?
No questions.
Okay, so there does seem to be some confusion about what we're trying to limit, and I mean, I guess I'm not clear on the time thing, you know, so we would allow people to store things and then move them out, correct? But this would not allow an Amazon fulfillment center, correct?
Well, a truck terminal, by definition in the code, is truck terminal, a gathering point of vehicles of the second division at which the contents thereof are distributed or combined or stored for a short period of time until distributed or combined. And I also just want to reiterate that that's one of the two land uses that staff are proposing no longer be allowed.
But nonetheless defined still.
Yeah, but it's
So
still
that we do
defined. It's
have
still
that
in the code.
Right.
The definition of a
Correct.
truck terminal will
Would
still be in the code.
And it will not be an allowed.
And this says you cannot be a truck terminal.
And so, you know, it uses the short duration. It's in the definition. I don't recommend that we try to put what a short duration means in terms of specific days, hours, minutes, or things like that. But that's staff's right. And that's the existing definition.
That's right.
It's like the changes proposed work hand in glove to say, hey, now that use isn't allowed, it's still defined, but it's not allowed. And then, by the way, this other use, what we would call an adjacent use, right? And by the way, you can't use that one to get a truck terminal either. Why is that? Well, because we've added to this and specifically say warehouse and distribution do not include those things. Because there is a reasonable need for warehouse facilities in a community, that we don't want to say that there's no warehouses. There's storage and people need to move
Right,
things.
but I mean, I think you can see where it'd be confusing, right? When
Yeah, I do.
if somebody brings goods in and sends them out in the last mile,
Right.
they might consider that warehousing and distribution. So,
Yeah, one can argue that, and there'll be interpretations made based on the description of their use, and that's what we do.
okay,
That's
just,
what we do, yeah.
I do have one other question. I think in reviewing master plans and I forget what they're referred to, maybe like neighborhood plans that are further referenced in the master plan. There's some references to intensity of use. Is there a way to incorporate intensity at all into this language to help clarify if we can't put a time? I don't know that gets us any closer, but
I mean,
that's arbitrary anyway.
it's not that it's arbitrary, you know, again, so are you saying, would you include something that says low intensity? You know, in terms of trip generation from a warehouse distribution facility? I'm not sure how we, we're just workshopping this, right?
Sure.
So, Corporation
Yes.
Counsel has his hand up.
Corporation Counsel Martinez.
I think the difficulty with some of the, I guess, trying to put a finer point on what constitutes an acceptable version of a warehouse distribution facility is the enforcement. If we were to put something about the intensity of use, I can foresee difficulty in the question, who's going to make that determination? Who's going to count? Let's say it's 80 trucks an hour. And then, if it goes up to 79 and then there's no more trucks, then if our cutoff's 80, it seems to be fine. But I think that the better thing to kind of think about is what is it that we're trying to prevent? What are we trying to prohibit? And just try to, and it's easier said than done, get to the heart of that rather than come up with perhaps arbitrary measurements that are going to be hard to enforce.
I would also add one comment to that as well. Intensity is also regulated to an extent by the planned unit development process, and there are certain thresholds there where a use may be allowed, but if it hits an intensity, it now has to go through the planned development process.
And as some commissioners may recall, because you were here when we discussed this, I think it was about a year ago or so, there's thresholds. The size of the facility triggers a planned development. It's above 25,000 square feet. That triggers it. So if there's a warehouse facility that's big, that will trigger a planned development.
And it's unlikely anybody's going to be developing a less than 25,000 square foot
Right. So
warehouse
what I would,
facility.
what I would have to say about intensity, it goes to Commissioner Mantis's point, is that there's other ways that intensity is dealt with. So consider that, right. So the facility itself will be small, right? I mean, when you talk about some of these centers, they're hundreds of thousands of square feet. They're not 25,000 square feet. I mean, the CVS is 10 to 15,000 square feet. They're just even, what we're talking about size-wise.
Right, so
And if you go out on 294, you'll see some of the big ones.
practicalities is these will all be special uses because they'd be planned unit development. Is what I would. Right.
Yes, if there was a warehouse, if there was a use that fit this definition and it was larger than 25,000, then they would have to.
Commissioner Arnold.
So, is the goal of this language to give this commission a little bit more teeth in discussing, or is it,
It's not about giving the commission more teeth. It's about having our zoning ordinance reflect what the community's desires and to provide staff when reviewing applications for projects, be able to say whether a use is even allowed or not. It's not going to come before you if it's not allowed. That just is a no
all
from
right,
staff.
well, I guess what I was trying to get at, and I phrased my question wrong, but thanks for that, is that you're not giving, like, the idea of intensity and knowing how many trucks are going there or how many trucks are even stored on a site leads to a different type of distribution facility. The language just isn't there for me. I just still can't figure out between what you're allowing and what you're not allowing. And it just seems to be really open to interpretation. And so I'm just begging you to kind of come up with some language that would at least give more guidance to whoever was reviewing it about what it is that you intend to restrict and what you intend to allow.
Okay.
Other questions? Council Liaison Littler.
Thank you. Joel, I think that it's really important. If Commissioner Arnold's question was exactly what I was asking you beforehand, because I don't think it was particularly clear. For example, we have a lot of businesses that the ancillary portion of their business has to do with trucks. So if you're a plumbing company, you actually are plumbing, you're not terminal storage, but if you have a fleet of 30 trucks and you want to have your front office operations in Highland Park as well as an area for your trucks, it's an ancillary use, it's not a terminal. But with further definition, perhaps even saying ancillary usages are permitted or numerically or something, I think clarification it's up to you to sort it out so that when it comes to the council, we can vote on it. But I would urge staff to take that into consideration, because I had the exact same questions you did, just different view. So I think clarity would really help with this one in drafting, if that's what you so choose to do.
Yes.
And to add to that, like, if you go back to the last slide, talking about like fulfillment centers, like what was formerly known as like Campus Colors, which is an e-com store, they have trucks coming in, they're fulfilling their orders. Is that classified as a fulfillment center, or would that be zoned to something else? I know, like, we're not trying to tell Campus Colors to leave town, but that's like,
There's a thing there, no.
I'm just curious
This
about how
just
we
turns
define
into,
fulfillment
right,
center.
so you have a store, and it may have accessory uses associated with it, right? And so that's an interpretation. I will stress, you cannot remove all interpretation from law. Okay?
Thank God.
You can't. You'll be tied up in knots, and you'll quickly recognize that you didn't understand all the things that go on in the world. Because the world is very complicated, and the world is very nuanced. We don't have a full understanding of all the things that people do, but we want to allow reasonable things, and we want to regulate in a reasonable way. So what the zoning code does is we have what are called principal uses, right? That's the main use of the site. And then you have accessory uses, as we're talking about. You may be a plumbing company that has some trucks, and you have some materials because you're going out on sites doing plumbing. So you have a plumbing office, you have a warehouse for your plumbing supplies, and you have some trucks. This isn't a truck terminal. That's not a truck terminal. That's an accessory to a plumbing supply, to a plumbing repair business in that case, right? So there's tests of what in the zoning code about what accessory is. And so if you meet those tests, then that's allowed to be an accessory to the principal use. If the principal use is allowed, you can have these accessory uses with them because they're reasonably related to the principal use. And so there is a bit of interpretation that goes into that. And, you could, if you stray from that, then you're saying, well, wait a minute, it's not an accessory use anymore if that's what you're doing. And then that becomes a principal use. And then we look to the principal use table and say, well, is this allowed? Well, no, it isn't. So then that's a different story. So it really is a case-by-case basis in which a business has to explain what they're doing in their operations so that we can do a determination as to whether or not they are allowed by the zoning code at the proposed location. And so this is literally what goes on with every use that comes to the city. We make those decisions. And so I understand what the commission's concern is. We'll take that back. We'll think about that. We'll work with Corporation Counsel. Carl, of course, is working hard on these things, and we'll try to incorporate some additional clarity, as said, but that's generally how that works.
Chair.
Yes, Commissioner.
I'm ever grateful for interpretation of statutes because they keep guys like me employed. But be that as it may, the issue that we're really trying to get to, and I think Commissioner Arnold's comments are particularly on point as our Council Littler, is that we want to have definitions that are sufficient to guide the public and not prone, it's impossible to eliminate, but not prone to arbitrary interpretation, because that's what gets governments into trouble. And I think it's all of our intention to try to avoid that and make it as clear as possible as to what we are specifically trying to eliminate and what we want to allow. And I suspect that we can define this better, which would be to everybody's benefit, not only the public, but the cities and to your offices, Director Fontaine and Mr. Burhop, in terms of applying these on a day-to-day basis.
So let me just, if I can summarize what I'm hearing and tell me if I'm right or wrong, commissioners. So we don't have a problem with eliminating truck terminals and freight and parcel terminals from the code. But we do have a problem with the first pass of the definition of warehouse and distribution centers, facilities. So It's what I'm hearing is that we would like you guys to take another pass at this and give us a little bit better definition and clarity on these terms and what we will and will not allow. Is that reasonable for everybody?
Would it be appropriate to entertain a motion to continue to a date certain? And the date certain would be up to you, Director Fontaine.
The next meetings are September 3rd and then September 17th. Yeah.
Okay, before we take that motion, if there are any members of the public who would like to speak on this issue. And so seeing none, if I can have a motion to continue this item to, what did we say, the 17th?
Yes, September 17th.
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved by Commissioner Henry, seconded by Commissioner Mantis. This would be a roll call vote.
This is a voice.
This is voice? Oh, okay. This is also voice. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so this matter will be continued to September 17th. Notice is actual and all the other legal things that go along with that.
Yes, that is correct. So it'll be continued to this place, City Hall, Tuesday, September 17th, 7 p.m. Plan and Design Commission meeting here, City Hall, 1707 St. John's in Highland Park.
All right. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, public hearing number 2024 ZTA 008 for a zoning text amendment to modify, strike, or create definitions and regulations for storage containers and similar uses and structures. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Highland Park Plan and Design Commission. My name is Steve Kirch. I'm the Vice Chair and Acting Chair for this evening's meeting. A quorum of the Plan and Design Commission being present, the members of the Plan and Design Commission will now introduce themselves for the record, starting on my far right.
Josh Nanis.
Denise Arnold.
Danny Mantis.
Ken Henry.
The Plan and Design Commission is charged with hearing applications for rezonings, plan developments, and subdivisions under the zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations of the City of Highland Park. In all matters, we recommend to the City Council, based upon the testimony presented to us in the hearing. We are required to decide cases within 45 days after receipt of the transcript. All testimony is under oath. Both applicants and others who wish to speak on a particular case should present specific evidence as to why a proposal meets or fails to meet the standards for the relief requested. For clarity of our records, only one person at a time will speak, and all questions will be directed through the chair. We ask that you make every effort not to be repetitive in your testimony. Finally, we will make every effort to adhere to the schedule prepared. For tonight's hearing, if additional time is needed on a matter, it will be continued until the next available agenda. With that, I open the floor for the staff to the Plan and Design Commission to read into the record proof of publication and ownership.
Proof of publication and ownership are available for viewing at the Offices of Community Development, 1150 and Half Day Road in Highland Park. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And with that, Senior Planner Burhop, do you have a presentation for us?
Yes, thank you. Okay, another relatively brief presentation. So my name is Carl Burhop. I'm a senior planner with the City of Highland Park in the Planning Division. So this is for a zoning text amendment regarding storage containers. Staff proposed modifying the zoning code to allow the use of storage containers not associated with a construction project. So the current zoning code does not allow storage containers unless they're with a permit for construction. The City Council actually provided feedback and direction on this at 3 committee of the whole meetings, and I believe I linked to at least 2 of them in the staff report. Staff requests at this meeting consideration and feedback from the commission, and if appropriate, direction to draft findings of fact and an ordinance capturing the proposed changes, and of course, a continuation to a date specific. Storage containers, what are they? Storage containers are usually large, metal, weather-resistant type containers used to store or ship items. They're sometimes referred to as shipping containers. Some of them you might know by their popular brand names like Connex boxes or pods. Pods get said a lot. That's just a brand name for a type of temporary storage container. They often get used for temporary use, though they can be used occasionally for longer uses, such as temporary classrooms and others. Proposed changes, this is 2 slides on this. This is one of 2. Allow the use of storage containers by right without a permit within any zoning district for up to 14 days per year, and allow one extension up to 30 days with a permit. And if there's questions, I can get into that. Allow by special use permit the use of storage containers related to non-residential land uses, when of course they're longer than that 30 days. That was allowed in the first bullet point. Through that type of consideration, aesthetic and locational matters will be addressed to ensure that storage containers are placed in the least visible location, and that measures to improve aesthetics and screen the containers are included as appropriate. Moreover, time period limitations could be imposed as necessary. So of course, the commission knows the special use permit process and how that works. This is the second slide. Exempt all governmental emergency services related uses. And then finally, this last one, I did note in the report, staff had, I realized that this was kind of similar to the tent consideration. So yes, that storage containers used for purposes related to an emergency declared by the city or by the state of Illinois are exempt from the requirements during dependency of the emergency. And that's something that was not at the committee of the whole. That's something that it occurred to me a few weeks ago that was really similar to the tent regulation provision. That's the presentation. I can take questions if there are any.
We'll start on my left this time with Commissioner Henry.
Would this apply then, Carol, to, let's say, the schools all of a sudden became overpopulated and they put in their parking lots, what we used to call in the city of Chicago, Willis wagons, which are mobile classrooms. Would this require the school district to come and seek a special use permit or something like that?
If it was unrelated to a construction permit, yes.
Commissioner Mantis, question?
So you noted that this would not be prohibited if it's associated with construction. Let's say, specifically in non-residential land uses. Let's say there's a flood in a basement and somebody's renovating their basement, they're putting all their belongings from the basement into a pod. Is that considered associated with construction?
Correct. And so that's something that the zoning code already allows. I forget the exact provision. It was cited in the report. So yes, when construction occurs for whatever reason, obviously that, there's a need for temporary storage or temporary dumpsters. And so then those are allowed, but they're also controlled and managed then through that permit process.
And then, I guess then secondary to that is a dumpster defined separately from a storage container within the code?
Well, that's actually a good question. I think as a matter of practice, we allow dumpsters as well with permits. Are they technically defined separately? I don't believe dumpster is defined. I'd have to double check, but I don't think so.
Okay.
But those are allowed with a construction permit, dumpster.
I guess my question though is like, do those need to be addressed within this, or is it understood that those are separate?
No, I believe we have that addressed, yeah.
So can you just clarify that how I'm reading your proposed changes is that right now you need to get a permit, and part of this is to change that, so you don't need to get a permit for the first 14 days?
Well, right now, storage containers are only allowed if somebody has a construction project, and then they're using that temporary storage container related to that project that has a permit, just to use a storage container for anything on its own is technically not allowed in the code. And so what this does is this is seeking to allow anyone to use a storage container by right without a permit for any zoning district for up to 14 days per year. So if somebody's moving to a home and they need to store stuff in a container for a week or two, this would allow that.
So how, after they've got it on site for a week or two, how do you get them to come in then and get their extension for 30 days?
If they need an extension, they would need to come in. I mean, the law would state that. That's it. They would have to come in.
Okay.
Well, there's lots of things in the law like that.
Will they do it is the question. Right?
No, okay, let's do one. So let's just say they don't do it. Okay, and so then we get a call, and the neighbor complains. And then we would go out and we'd say, okay, hey, what are you doing? It seems like you need a permit because you've been here for longer than 14 days. Now, you can argue about how you know how many days they've been there. Well, I'll tell you this, the day we go out there and see the storage container, that's day one at a minimum, right? So then you have 14 days. Now, you could say, well, they got away with some time. Sure, they may have. The question is, how many resources do you want to spend monitoring this and doing that? Okay, so I would say that, yes, that's a possibility. Someone could play that game and do that. Absolutely, they could. Or we could just tell them at that time when we got a complaint call, we say, okay, well, how long has this been here for? We ask people. People generally are straightforward and honest. They tell us. We've had people say, we've had complaints about construction. We've actually gone to the construction manager and said, hey, did you work on the 4th of July? And they said, yes. I said, oh, it's a citation. I mean, that's just the way that goes. Sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. For people who won't be truthful, we still have the control. So we say you have 14 days, otherwise you need to come in for a permit for an extension. So that would be a worst case scenario. I think people generally will utilize these in a short-term manner. I think our research showed that communities allow this for short-term and they try not to overregulate. People have various needs. We have people in the community who actually have different furniture for different times of the year, and they have off-site storage, and they come and they redecorate their house depending on the season. And so there are some uses like that. Other people, like we had said, just move to the neighborhood and just have some stuff in there. They haven't moved everything in. Something got shipped from somewhere. Who knows? There's any number of reasons people need to use this. And so we think 14 days is reasonable, and then a 30-day extension thereafter. And then for the others by special use permit, that has to go, those are for folks, non-residential areas, right? Non-residential land uses, I should say, not necessarily residential areas. And why there's that distinction that says non-residential land uses is for as follows. You have institutions like synagogues, churches, other types of places of worship that may need some storage containers for some reason. So that's why it says non-residential land uses. Otherwise, you can't have a long-term storage container on your site.
Commissioner Nanis?
I have no questions.
So I just have one. The first bullet, allow use of storage containers by right without a permit within any zoning district for up to 14 days. Is that residential only?
That's any
So
zoning
even
district.
a commercial business?
Yeah, so
for
any
14
use
days.
as well.
Okay, so
Institutional.
I'm reading that right. Then the special use permit for the non-residential would only kick in after the 14 days?
Correct.
Okay.
14 days, and then you're allowed one extension. So technically someone could, institutional use could say, hey, we just need this for a month, that kind of a thing. But then, yes, the special use permit would kick in after that 30 days.
Okay, maybe it's just, maybe those need to become, they allow one extension up to 30 days without a permit for residential only, right? For non-residential.
So there's a distinction. When we say with a permit, that just is what we would refer to like a simple, it's a non-building permit, okay? It's not a special use permit or anything. It's just a permit. That means it's a way we can keep track. So if you're doing it for 14 days, I need another 30 days, we're going to want to start tracking that because you're now beyond what we're willing to just say you could just do.
I'm just saying I would spell out more clearly exactly what those are, right? After 30 days, this happens.
Yep. Okay. Understood.
Council Liaison Littler, if I could ask you a question, since the city council obviously spent a lot of time on this and effort, can you share the thinking from the council with us?
Well, I think that, part of it was to ensure that we don't have long-term containers all over the place. But we also, and again, I was reminded, and this was very clear in the council, we did not want to separate out government bodies for exemption for this. Because one of the issues that came out was, for example, if you think about in the Ravinia area near Jensen Park, whether that is furniture, things for Food Truck Thursdays, we didn't want to have unsightly containers taking up the entire area for the rest of the week or for the entire summer, for example. So it was one thing if you're going to have a big event. We have the art festival this coming weekend. So the trucks are going to start and the containers are going to be brought in, you know, it's Saturday and Sunday. So probably, I think their permitting starts actually today. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, containers may start getting dropped, but that's for a very short period of time. We didn't want commercial nor governmental taking advantage of that. And that's why there's the special use permit portion put in there where, as you may hear in a few minutes, a governmental body or someone might want to use it for a different thing, but then it would come for consideration to this body and to the city council.
And so the
I don't
council
know if
did.
that clarifies it,
Sorry, yeah.
but you think that's about, I think.
Yeah, and I would just say that the council did understand that there's a practical need from governmental entities to have these. It's just there's a desire, like Councilmember Littler said, of not having the proliferation.
Yes.
And so that's where the long-term use of these has to go through that special use process. And so there's going to be various governmental entities that currently have them, and they're just fine. As a matter of fact, I believe the school district property even came up, and council seemed, you know, at least informally, very comfortable with it, but nonetheless didn't want to say everybody in governmental agencies are exempt.
And to be really honest with you, I think the example that was given about someone moving in is a very good example. That's not really what we were worried about. We were more concerned in areas where it's everybody's enjoyment, a park, the back of an area was completely taken up by large containers that we didn't want to have around without permission from y'all.
Thank you. Commissioner Henry.
Do I understand this right, though, that if it's a residential land use, you get 44 days and you're out?
That's right.
Yeah.
That is understood correctly.
And is that realistic, do you think? Or what is the avenue for somebody with a residential use who may need more than 44 days?
They should have a construction permit.
And it's
Start
not
building
construction.
something.
Yeah.
Or the
Yeah.
exact opposite, it's up to this commission. You may say that, you know what, in a residential area, we don't want you to have 14 and 30. We want to do 14 and 14. I mean, that is your purview,
That's right.
what you think is acceptable.
Or maybe we want to provide
A second,
residential uses to
With special
have
permits.
the ability to seek a special use permit also. I mean, I don't know what the circumstances could be, but it's certainly within the realm.
Well, we're here, you know, this is again, just a consideration at this time. We're looking for feedback like previous. We're going to take that feedback in and try to accommodate the comments and go forward. It is a recommendation to City Council. The City Council did workshop this a bit, but they want to hear your opinions and you make things better, you know, your comments, you know, you do. And so, yeah, you know, we're open.
Seemed reasonable to me. I mean, I don't know if I don't know how long neighbors are tolerant of those sorts of things, but, you know.
Generally,
by
I'll tell
30
you,
days, I think you're going to find out, right?
from an enforcement point of view, I haven't heard anyone really happy about a storage container. And I just say from the calls we get, it's usually not, hey, it's great to have, or, you know, it's usually like, what's going on?
Well, but with that said, I mean, who's happy to have construction going on for longer than
This
44
is
days
true.
and have a storage container also,
True.
right?
It's
So,
true. But you also have to have a reasonable ability to use your land in a way to get things done. And so with the construction project, that, you know what, that's under a permit. People seem to understand that. Really, where the complaints have come in is really just hey, what's this can out in their driveway for? Just, yeah.
Before I forget, do we have any member of the public who would like to testify in this matter? If you would, please come up to the microphone. If I could swear you in.
Sure.
Do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you very much. Can you please state your name and spell your last name for the note taker?
My name is Brian Amer. My last name is Ahmer.
Okay. And by rule, we have 3 minutes. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Absolutely. Yep. First off, I want to say, thank you to Mr. Verhoep. I've had some questions about this item, and he's been a great partner in talking me through what is being presented today. So I am the Chief Operations Officer for District 113. And so I'm coming here tonight because I'm talking about storage containers. And I just wanted to talk to this commission to say that we have storage containers now. They're under the bleachers, so they're really part of a bleacher system. They're underneath a roof, if you want to call it that. And so I would like to continue using those storage containers. I'd like to see if I understand there's a process. And so we could glad to follow that process, or if that's part of this commission's work, to allow us to continue to do that. It's something we've had for a while. It's primarily athletic storage. On that note, I wasn't planning on talking about construction permits. We'd also do construction every year at Highland Park High School. But just as a note, we don't get our building permits through the city. We get them through the Regional Office of Education. So I assume that would also qualify us to have construction-related permits. Yes.
Yes,
If you.
Director Fontaine.
So just to, right on that point, I wouldn't enforce. If they've gotten building permits from the Regional Office of Education, we respect that as having a building permit.
Yeah.
I just want you to know that. I wouldn't try to enforce this on them in that way. I would say that that's consistent with our code.
I mean, they've been there a long time, right?
The ones under the bleachers are a different thing. That's for storage of athletic equipment. He was talking about, should they have a construction project?
Oh.
We are not the office that grants building permits for the school district. The Regional Office of Education does. And so long as they have a permit from them, I would not enforce saying that they don't have a construction permit. I would accept that as a construction.
But we're not,
what I'm
we
saying.
wouldn't count the places under the bleachers as storage containers, right? Those are permanent.
Those would be part of, this would require them to have a special use permit for those, yes. Even though those are considered appropriate and not a problem. But yeah, if we're looking to regulate the governmental agencies, the same as the commercial entities, this is where that spirit came from.
Are those really are those pods, or can they be moved?
They haven't, I've been with the district since 2019-ish, and they have not been moved. Sure, they could be moved. They're athletic storage under the bleachers, and then there's one that's not. It's in the bus area. But we do have. I believe the description that I heard today. I feel like they would qualify as storage containers as described. So I would seek relief in this commission, or we would then, if I couldn't get that here, we would need to follow the PUD SUP process. I'm just trying to expedite the process. If I don't have to do that, I won't. But I'm glad to, if needed.
This passes.
So also certain, the city itself will have to go through a process as well for storage containers. But for emergency services, storage related containers, police, fire.
That seems to catch up a lot of things that have been in use for quite some time.
This is why
you could have built something different.
That's the alternative. Absolutely.
Do you want to
that's
consider,
correct.
Should we consider grandfathering certain things?
Not grandfather other things though?
Well, this is my opinion, and not,
I have a hard time with some of this, regional office of education making determinations for what happens in our community without us having a partnership in the process. And I faced this issue in many other cases too, where, I was working at Chicago Union Station on a redevelopment project for 2060. And we were told by Amtrak that because they're federal funds, they don't have to come in and follow City of Chicago permitting processes. And we laughed. I mean, that's not going to happen. And I kind of feel the same way about the regional. I mean, I have done renovated schools, and the amount of purview that the regional office has in construction projects, their expertise is pretty minimal. I wouldn't rely on them for permit review, and I can't imagine us as a city saying that we would just let them make determinations of what happens at District 113. But that's me. So I wouldn't want to grandfather you in. I'd want to actually ask you to talk about long-term storage and making better use of taxpayer dollars rather than having storage pods on site and actually building a storage facility that better serves the district and students in the community. But that's just me.
Commissioner Mantis.
To be clear, the comments were two separate things, though. There are storage places underneath the grandstands, and then anything related to construction would be separate storage that would fall under that permitting process. So those were two separate examples of the storage containers that you're dealing with.
Yes,
Yeah,
sorry,
so-
I should have been more clear, I apologize. Two different issues.
Director
If I
Fontaine.
may, and so just to be clear with what I was saying, in our code, if you have a building permit for a construction project, you're allowed to have storage containers. What I was saying, this is not the Regional Office of Education telling us anything or interpreting anything.
Right.
Our zoning code is separate and apart from what they do building code wise. So they don't have a say on our zoning code. What I'm saying is they are an entity that grants building permits for construction. I look to, if they have a construction permit from the Regional Office of Education because they are the permitting authority for them, I would respect that and say then, by our zoning code, they have a construction permit and they're allowed to have a storage container. That's all I'm saying. They didn't tell us to do anything. All I'm saying is I'm respecting that they have issued a building permit, much like my office would. And then if my office did, you'd be able to do this. And so if their office did, we allow that. That's all I'm saying. So.
Okay, any other comments from the public? Are you? Yeah, we got plenty of time for you, right? So, was there anything else?
You got a minute 24.
I mean,
Suspended animation here.
You spoke with another.
we kind of just
Sure.
reviewed questions. Did you have anything more to
Take
want
away
to
from
say?
that time. No, I just want to say thank you for allowing me to talk, and just thank you to Carl for being extremely transparent and helping me through this process. So if we need to, again, if we can address it here, great. If I need to follow up and follow the the PUD process, SUP process,
Right.
we would also do so.
Okay,
And just for the commission's sake, just a reminder, and just for Mr. Armour as well. So the SUP process is a lot lighter than the PUD process. So it's a quicker process. There are fewer requirements, but there is still a discretionary decision that needs to be made about the appropriateness of a particular location, the aesthetics and all that.
okay, and saw no other public comments. Any other questions? What is the will of the commission in this matter? I know. So, I mean, it seems like we're pretty much good with it.
Well, I'd like to see the language of what.
Oh, yeah, no,
what's
this is
being
just
proposed.
workshop. It's
This
gonna
is-
come back.
This is just, conceptual.
Oh, right, I just questioned whether you want to just continue it, or do you want to direct findings of fact, recommending this to the council?
I'd like to see what's actually being proposed, the language, before I'd say findings of fact and potential recommendation to the council.
And we could always draft them and, you know, with the ordinance, you could look at it, you choose not to adopt them and want further changes. It doesn't obligate you to adopt
I guess
any
this
findings.
is not the language we're using, is that what I'm understanding, or?
No, this is not.
No, it
Okay.
needs to be
Well,
put
then
into
that-
ordinance.
Yeah, this is not an
Yeah,
ordinance
you
form.
will, you will get that.
This was to generate feedback and.
Okay, cool.
and
Right, this is essentially the framework that then will be made into an ordinance that, yeah, you'll see the actual wordsmithing of it, yeah.
Well, in that case, a motion to continue to a date certain would probably be the appropriate motion.
Yep, the 17th.
Yeah.
Same
September
17th?
17th.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Henry,
Seconded.
and second by Commissioner Arnold. And now this time I know this one's a voice vote again. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, this public hearing is continued to our meeting on September 17th. Notice is actual, and Carl will give me the rest of
This
the
room at 7 PM.
7
This room, 7
PM,
PM. Yep.
City Hall, right here.
Yes. Tuesday, September 17th, 7 PM, right here in City Hall at 1707 St. John's Avenue in Highland Park.
Okay, thank you.
Brian,
Other
keep you on the
business?
interested parties list. Yeah, of course. Yeah, we'll let you know how this goes through the process. Yeah.
That's what you okay, no.
Any information items, administrative design review update?
I do not, Mr. Chair.
Next regular meeting, September 3rd, 2024. Do we have a tentative agenda?
I believe there will be 2 policy items before the commission on that evening, 2 zoning text amendments.
Well, you guys have been busy with these
Yeah.
ZTAs over here.
It's been a very busy year. Yep.
Case briefing, Director Fontaine.
Mr. Chairman, I do not have a new case briefing.
Any other business from the vast public out there tonight? Seeing none. That leaves us with the final item of adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Or we can keep going.
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
Moved by Commissioner Nanis, second by Commissioner Mantis. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, see you all again on September 3rd.
Excellent meeting, you guys, really.